Good evening, and welcome back. Welcome back to the round table. What a wonderful set of presentations and talks we've had so far. Just one tip before we start the discussion. Take a look at the chat box. There's some fantastic links and comments in there, and make sure you take a copy of that. When we started this morning, I used a slide and I used this message: what is possible? What is possible today? What is possible tomorrow and into the future? And that's what I'd like to open up the conversation with. And we'll have a conversation here in Sabden, but we'll also bring in people online from around Europe and from around the world. I think we have some people joining us from the States, which is really good. So just passing down the table, I think when I started this one, I explained what I thought was possible. Anna, what's possible today?
What's possible today? Well, I'll just welcome Richard back anyway. Richard, to unmute so that you're part of the table virtually. Hello, Richard. What's possible today? Conversation and rebellion. Grassroots, it's got to be grassroots. We've spoken a lot about this waterfall method of for those of us who are in the corporate world, you know, it's all about the people at board level, people who are writing policy, people who are affecting change, but we're seeing so much. For instance, we've had Letty on the Zoom Regenerative, a great example of a collaborative group coming together, drawing together across industry without ego to just provoke and put advice out there and put themselves in a leadership position.
Absolutely, and we're seeing more groups like Letty, ACAN, the AES we mentioned with Scott. Yeah, so lots of things are happening today. Yeah. Alison, within schools with younger children?
Well, I think it's actually been marvellous for children in one way with COVID and terrible on the other way. Because I think the art of collaboration and conversation, we definitely need to ramp that up again, because children have been missing from school for so long. And I speak even of my own daughter. She's 17 years old, and you go and look through the door in her chat rooms with the teachers and so on, and everybody's on mute. They're just using the chat facility. So the art of conversation's gone. I think we need to certainly re-engage with children again and talk to them. But I think the big thing for me will be actually the art of the possible through genuine social value. And I put genuine on for a reason, because there's an awful lot of waffle going around. And I know in the chat we talked about, the sort of wash that goes on with all the sort of green agenda and so on. But there's a lot of wash still with social value, and we're still seeing people behaving in the same way in engaging young people and engaging their teachers particularly, and I revert back to Anne with Educate the Educators, that they're still doing the same things they were doing, which is the thing that made me give up my job and try to change things 12 years ago, but even 20 years ago when I was working on the schools programmes then. So for me, the art of the possible will come through genuine collaboration. And again, Martin, I remember one of the great presentations you did around collaboration is king. It's still not king yet. We've still not got there. But I think it's possible again, because it's almost like starting over. Yeah. Now we're post-COVID. Please God.
Brilliant. And before I come to you, I'd like to pull Richard in a second. I'm just listening to the art of conversation. I think it probably goes deeper, and it's the art of being present. Yes. It's so easy to drift away. We've got so many channels coming into us. It's a real skill now to dive in, to be present and focus. But Richard, you're just over the hill. Over the Pendle Hill down in Clitheroe. What do you see as the possible today, tomorrow and onwards?
Well, I think, we have had a sort of reset with COVID, and people have rediscovered things that they didn't have the time to discover beforehand. And the biggest tragedy would be to us to return to our lives as they were beforehand. I think what is encouraging is that, it's going to change the way that cities are built and cities are run. And, such serious studies like Deloitte's did a study of, in people in financial services in London, for example, and even they, something that like 70% of the people that answered that said they wanted to have this this ability to work at home, say maybe 2 days a week, and that is because I think people have discovered this train they're on. And I know that we're sitting in the middle of some beautiful Lancashire countryside, but if you imagine you're commuting into a big city like London, and you're going back, you're spending 2.5 hours on a crowded train going in, and all of that was just in the rhythm of life. That's what you did, and COVID has actually got people to say, well, actually, there's something much more about that. They've actually learned something more about the town they live in and the community. They're not just dormitory places. And, goodness me, people are starting to like it, And so the great thing about it is it could change everything from transportation, all of this thing where we just build more and more transport links into them to get people in the middle of town. It might be that, those office buildings that are now no longer going to be fully occupied become residential, and maybe instead of dead spaces in the city of London over the weekend, there's actually people living there and things like that. So I think what it does do is it makes people stop and think. And I think all of the work that all of you team and everybody in Restore are doing, all the thinking you're doing, is fabulous, because so much of the way we've done things in the past has just been process driven. That's what we always did, and there's not enough time for reset. So one thing we can learn, let's just take all the negatives out of the COVID crisis and take the positives out of it, and then say, how can we cherish those and make sure we don't lose those? And that's, I think, a fantastic opportunity for the future.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Richard. There was a quote around this time last year, Aaron Dattay, writing in the Financial Times, likened the pandemic to a portal. And we're going to pass through the portal, and we need to decide what we take through with us and leave all the bad stuff behind and take the good stuff that we really want. And I think you're right. We're all based in Lancashire, and we're all very, we used to travel down to London on a very regular basis. And the thought of doing that now, well, yeah, we will, but yeah. And I also agree about the Build Back Better. It's become to be Build Back Better with more growth. We're still focused on this growth route. And to bring you in from academia and from architectural technology, what's possible?
Everything's possible. The question isn't sort of what's possible, and we've sort of almost proved this time and time again when we've done activities in sort of buildings, and we've asked people what would they do with empty buildings. We are not short of creativity. People have the ideas and they have the aspiration. I think we need to work with people to ensure that they have the belief and the confidence, and possibly a bit of knowledge into how to do things. So a little bit more sort of community-led involvement, getting people, giving them the skill sets that they need to address their own needs, whether it's housing needs, educational needs, those sorts of things. And we, like I say, as certainly as the design, from the design side of things, I can look at sort of pretty much any building, and I hope my students can, and imagine how you might carve it up in different ways. What we're not very good at is working with the communities. Again, it's that sort of bit of whitewash that sort of goes on. Ideas, plans get delivered, they get shown, and then their opinions are asked for them. We don't often go in with a blank piece of paper and sort of say, what would you like here? Or go in with different tools to help them sort of have those conversations. So we spend a lot of time in the studio playing with Lego, because there's a lot of research that talks about people feeling very uncomfortable picking up a pen to draw because they've been told for years and years that they can't draw and things like that. But give someone, a piece of wooden block or something like that, or some Lego bricks, and all of a sudden their imagination, they're going back to their childhood. So actually it's not just about sort of listening to the children now, but actually reminding ourselves of our own inner child and everything like that, and working with people to allow them to develop the language that they need to address some of their own issues.
Really nice. You just reminded me, I was talking that, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago when value engineering was the thing. and we were trying to push value engineering in a different direction. So before you put any line on a piece of paper, you value engineer, you do the whole thing. Because as soon as you've got a line on the piece of paper, you're value engineering that line. Yeah, you're starting to close down the options. Yeah. And maybe we're doing the same now with sort of biophilia. Yeah, we're starting projects with the biophilia workshop, which should be an open canvas, learning from nature. But people still bring along their designs. How does this fit? How does that fit? So, yeah. What I'd like to do is bring in some other voices. I'm just looking around the deck here, and many people have lived with Restore for the last 4 years. So I'd just like to bring in your thoughts of what's possible from the work that's been done. And Carlo, I see you're online. I hope you're present and can join us with your thoughts on what's present. What's possible. Probably making a cup of tea or coffee in Italy.
I think just something that resonates with me while we wait for Carlo to come in or somebody else is, and I'm going to talk about it later on, is meditating. So for me, what just really jumped out with what you just said then is about you have to know yourself first before you can make a decision, or before you even can identify that there might be something a little bit amiss and that you want to make a change. And I'm going to talk about it much more later, but meditating for me takes me out of that noisy, tumultuous day-to-day, and it allows me just to settle down, have a creative 20 minutes, and then resurface with a much calmer and clearer focus on what it is that I want to do. And that is the only thing that has brought me any clarity, really, in these last few years, and allowed me to really focus my intention and therefore be a more educated purchaser or client and parent, never mind any of the other things that meditating brings. But some of these are the golden threads, aren't they, that do run through many of the conversations that we have. And yeah. I mean, from your point of view, we've got this big body of work here from Restore. What are the golden threads that have run through those for you?
Very good point, Hannah. And I think the golden thread which runs through is around removing away from a focus which is based on technical solutions to one which is more based on living system focus. So we're moving away from the mechanistic to the fluid, the living. And that's represented, of course, in Living, Building Challenge, Build with Nature, and all the other standards which are coming through. But you could pick up any of these, and we've got loads on the table here. They're really good books. But connectivity with nature is a thing which is probably present in all five, but not probably, it is. Yeah. And Richard, that very much plays into what you're doing, that connectivity with nature through the nature reserve, but also through education, outreach.
Yeah, I think we learn from a lot of things. I used to have in another life before my current life, I used to spend a lot of time in architecture, and I was involved in that. And I was always impressed by some of the Scandinavian concepts of office buildings, for example. We were building offices going vertically and taking people away from nature, except the odd seagull that maybe landed on the balcony. But a lot of their buildings were horizontal, and they were, and I had businesses out in Scandinavia, and the joy of going out to, I remember one particular company I had in a place called Högsjö, which is about 100 kilometers into the Swedish forest from Stockholm, and the offices just snaked through the trees and the water, and it was like every office was a window into nature, and it had a tremendous vision. And what it did was it created a sort of karma about the place, but also, I must say, the creativity of it, and particularly we had one room which had sort of multiple aspects of that, and the architect of that particular building understood this connection with nature, and actually Scandinavians are very good at that. They haven't lost that connection. You can see that from their building styles and things. We've got to learn a lot from that. But I think I would say that, just taking the point back that was raised beforehand about you know, the type of way we consult with people and things. I think that's a very important point about language, because, you know, first of all, we have a bunch of experts and everybody's experts at it and they know the subject very well. And then you present this to a slightly confused and willing audience. And it's very difficult to get them to navigate through it. And of course, you know, you've got a particular agenda, and it's very difficult when you've got a passion and an agenda to actually allow, you know, inexpert views to start shaping things, etc. And it feels very uncomfortable. And somehow we've got to deal with that being uncomfortable and actually just put the time in to explain. And you know, it does take more time to explain the thinking behind it. And there's more of a backstory rather than just presenting, hey, this is a design we've done. And there it is. And it's absolutely wonderful. And we thought through everything and you're going to love it, you know, you know, there's a backstory about history and shape and things. And I think that one of the things, just taking what you're talking about, Martin, the theme running through nature, we've seen this trend in the last 10, 15 years, I think, about how that people feel better, they work better, they feel better if they in fact are connected to this wonderful world we've got outside, you know. And so we've got sort of, I work, my office in London, you know, I've got a mad guy who owns it, who is an architect and builder, very, very good guy called Chris McCarthy. And he's an urban gardener, you know, and the whole roof is full of, you know, he built fish ponds on the roof so that you have a complete section of the fish poo would sort of fertilize the tomatoes that were growing up in the thing. And everything was about creating space and trying to turn city spaces into things. And he's an absolute visionary. And we had everything growing there, and it was all, everybody coming in the office would be, you could pick your own fruit and tomatoes and everything as it was going through the cycle. So, you know, we need more of that, which was once sort of wacky, but it feels good and everybody feels good about it.
We were talking earlier about the Pendle and the Sabden witches, but all they were witches and wizards who had a better connection with the land, the seasons, the nature, the type of thing we're trying to get back to. So we'll all end up in Lancaster Castle, maybe. So many thanks for your contribution there, Richard, and here. We've been talking about the wonderful outputs from the Restore programme over the last 4 years. I'd like to ask Jelena to join us, if you can, and to share your screen, Jelena. Take us through the outputs of Restore.
So as Martin put it, this last presentation of this part deals with the introduction, communication of the scientific output that was achieved through the Restore action. So much of the work that I will present is coordinated in a sense of a dissemination and communication by Daniel Friedrich, who is our Restore Scientific Communication Manager. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today to present it by himself. So I will do it in his place as I was supporting him throughout this work as a communication teams member. So just briefly, the content of the presentation. I will just give a couple of facts and figures of the action. I think you have already heard much of it. Also list some of the activities that was, summary of the activities that was performed over the past 4 years. Then I will move on to the printings, specifically reports and booklets that were prepared that are already published. I will just briefly mention one specific output of Working Group 4, which is called Atlas of Solutions. Then I will move on with the printings that are still in planning. Well, they are basically very much near their finish. And then I will give some comments about what we can do once the action has ended to keep the Restore philosophy and actually turn it into practice. And I will give you at the end some of the some reminder of how to stay connected with Restore. So since this presentation deals with how we communicate, how we disseminate the outputs, I would first like to say that the hub for all the information is actually the website of the Restore action, so eurestore.eu. The action itself was very, very large. It included over 160 members from 40 countries, both from academia and from the industry. And what I personally think was very, very important for this action, those members come from a large number of very different competence fields, which really provides, which really facilitates and moves a holistic, truly holistic research. So as I said, the hub of all information is the Restore website, and there you can also find more information about all the work that was done. The research itself was done through 5 working groups, which were actually operating in succession. So one only when one has finished its work, the results, the outputs were transferred to the second group, and it then started its work. In addition to the research, there was education through 5 academic training schools. There was an industry workshop for industrials. There were a couple of scientific missions which were aimed to interconnect different universities. There was funding of conference participation through ITCs. There was funding of journal publications through OA grants. There is an initiative which you can still participate in, that is to do carbon offsetting of all travels. I won't go into the detail, but I invite you to go to the website. And if you haven't contributed yet, please, we would really, really appreciate if you could do that. And in addition to that, to manage the entire work, to perform the work, the research itself, there were 5 management committee meetings. There were 50 core group meetings, and there were really countless subgroup meetings. Towards the end of the action, of course, due to the pandemic, we had to move all of these online. The major outputs, so the reports and the booklets, you can find on the website under deliverables. So as I said, the research itself was done through working groups, 1 to 5, and each and every one of them prepared a publication focusing on its part of the work. So it started with working group 1, which produced a booklet on restorative sustainability already in 2018. Then working group 2 produced a book on restorative design 1 year later, that is in 2019. Then followed the working group 3 with restorative building and operations. Then working group 4, which focuses on rethinking technology for the better indoor environment, and its publication was published last year. And the last but not least is the working group 5 on scale jumping, with the final booklet about to be published. The entire work is to be combined in a final book of the cost action, very comprehensive book, over 300 pages, prepared by 37 authors from 20 countries, and the work on it is nearing finish. As I said, there is one specific output of the action. You can find it on the website under deliverables, under tools. This tool is called Atlas of Solutions, and what it does is it gives an interactive map of 36 case studies which were collected during the work of working group 4, which gives a structured examples of the technologies improving indoor environment quality, connecting it to the level that was achieved, that whether it is sustainable, restorative, or regenerative. Throughout the action, the communication team tried to keep all the members and any other interested parties up to date with the news, what is going on. And this was done through the newsletters, which were released monthly. So there is over 40 of them published up to today. So they gave a review of the activities of the Restore action that were finalized up to the issuing of the newsletter. It gave a list of disseminations that are acknowledging Restore. It gave details on the management decision and similar. And in addition to that, it gives announcements of the planned future Restore activities, relevant paper calls in journals, relevant congresses, nomination of members, new members, and similar. What is still in planning are 2 publications. The first one is Restory, Managing a Cost Action as a Project. So this will be a printed book which describes, which focuses on how to manage a project like a cost action. It gives a presentation of the action, of the project itself. It gives chronological overview of activities, and most importantly, it gives lessons that were learned from the action. The second publication is called Restored 2030, a city following Restore philosophy, where the idea is to apply the regenerative knowledge, the tools and outcomes from Restore. So basically to develop a dissemination package with training, with workshops as a guidance material. So this might be used to support schools, to support academia, and also to support the practice. All of those outputs you can find, as I said, under deliverables on our website. They're all freely available for use. So there are online books, graphics, videos, presentations, really a lot of material. For those coming from the scientific area, it might be of importance that most of these documents are scientifically citable. So even though the action ends, the Restore action ends, we will still try to keep the website alive and update it further. So basically on the Restore landing page, you will see all the new announcements, all the new informations. We will also try to list the papers that are acknowledging Restore. We will also try to keep alive the list of relevant congresses that are coming, and we will give some notification on planned joint research projects. But in order to, even though the action is coming to the end, in order to really try to put the Restore philosophy into practice, here are some of the proposals for practical applications on how to use the outputs that I have mentioned. So for example, students can conduct technology assessments from the Atlas of Solutions. Lecturers can create a course script with contents from the working group's booklets. Restore Final Book can be an inspiration for industrial managers to reorient their business. Project managers can take into account the experiences from the Restore book when planning their activities. Universities can expand their teaching concepts with elements that are described in the booklets. And public authorities, politicians, and humanists can draw inspiration from the Restored 2030 book. So with this, I would like to end this brief presentation of our outputs. As I said, the hub for all information is our website, eurestore.eu. You can always contact us via email, but also I invite you to follow us further on the Facebook, on Twitter, and also there is a dedicated ResearchGate link, and you have already heard that there is also a YouTube channel providing some videos, providing footage from some of the Restore events. So with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask.
Yeah, every time I hear that presentation, I'm just amazed at the volume of work we've produced. And I think that's a huge congratulations to everybody involved in Restore, all the way back from that very first meeting in Brussels through to today in Sabden. And it's a real pity that we can't meet in person, that we can't meet in an Italian square and take coffee in the sun before we start the days. So, but I'm really hoping that will come back. The session on the agenda was called "It's a Wrap and a New Beginning," and I think that's the sense that we've got a real future in front of us. We've done a lot of work, now we can start to apply. And for those people who've been involved in Restore since the beginning, I've got something to share with you, and I'd like to ask you to take a drink. Alison's very kindly donated a nice bottle of champagne here. And Carlo, I don't know if you can recall, it was 4 years ago today. I celebrated a birthday just down the valley from you, outside of Arco. I'm hoping this is going to be as good as that wine was, but in the sun after a long cycle, it was superb. But I'm going to try and open this bottle of champagne without smashing the number of cameras here.
Yes, all the windows, please.
But please do raise a glass. Just like that. You see, I'm not skilled at doing this.
Quite all right.
I tend to drink out of the bottle directly.
Good effort, Martin.
But there's a story there, but we won't go. So yeah, if you're not unmuted, please unmute yourself. And those people who've been in Restored, I think we need a really good celebration and clap. But yeah, cheers everyone. Yeah.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well
Cheers.
done.
Congratulations.
And Carlo, we've saved the Restore from disappearing after 12 months or so. We put a vote to the management committee, and more or less unanimously they agreed that Living Future Europe would take on the responsibility of making sure that Restore has a future. So the assets, the logos, the website, etc., would transfer to Living Future Europe. Are you back with us, Carlo? Brilliant. Yes, we can. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
You surprised me with the champagne, and yeah, sorry. I have only beers in my fridge now.
Enjoy. Yeah, so Carlo, I mean, it was 4 years ago at that regeneration session in Arco and in Dro, where we put the final touches to Restore with Emanuela. And it's been one hell of a journey, a brilliant journey. So, yeah, very grateful to you for steering us through.
It was almost 6 years ago, Martin. So
don't mention that.
Because the preparation process for applying to the call was very long, and yeah, that's it. So we officially started in March 2017. But yeah, you remember we started in I think the first time in 2015 to talk about this project. So it's been a while, I have to say.
It has, and it was at those regeneration exercises in Dro where we took time to plan, which was really good. So many thanks for everyone staying with us until now. We're going to take another break. I think we've called this break dinner. We're going to take a bite to eat here. I trust you will do so. We'll be back in 30 minutes with the Zoom regenerative session. We'll be showing a couple of videos through the dinner break, the interval. We'll be showing the Curtin Valley video, which was made for the ASPB Awards. And we'll also be showing a fantastic piece of work by Jenny Sturgeon. It's a piece of music set to one of my favorite books, rewilding, mindful books, called The Living Mountain, based in the Cairngorms. So enjoy those two videos, enjoy lunch, and we'll be back with Zoom regenerative and Petrakuta sessions.
We will. I think Anna has a few key words for us as well.
Yeah, and over to Anna. Sorry, Anne, yeah. Too many A's.
Too many A's, yes, we're the A team, aren't we, here
We
today?
are the A team, yes.
Thank you. I suppose it does feel a bit like it's the end of a journey, sort of a celebration. We're talking about sort of what's happened in the past, but I think with all these sort of things, we also need to think about what's coming in the future. So I think I would like everyone to take away with them something that they have learned about themselves or about their practice, and really sort of almost a little mandate, a little sort of plea, possibly to be sort of slightly rebellious, to actually just sort of say, that's what you're going to carry on doing. There has to be a legacy that we have as a result of the journey that we have taken. So hopefully that's enough for me. But please stay tuned for the Zoom regenerative after our lunch, tea, dinner. I don't mind. Cheers. Stay with us.
Cheers.